Wealthy teens mock Latino. Classmate'S clothes. School fashion show reveals shocking twist. Hello, welcome. Leave a like, subscribe, activate notifications, and enjoy this story. What if your life could change in an instant, and everything you thought you knew about the people around you was turned upside down? Alejandro, a quiet Latino kid with a heart full of dreams, walks the halls of his school, unnoticed by most, but targeted by a few. They laugh at his clothes, mock his silence, and never imagine the battle he's facing behind those tired eyes. But Alejandro carries something deep inside, something no one could ever predict. The stage is set. A school fashion show meant to showcase the wealthy and popular becomes the scene of a shocking revelation. As the spotlight falls on Alejandro, the world of those who belittled him is about to be turned inside out. What happens next will break your heart, challenge your assumptions, and leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about courage, dignity, and the price of kindness. This is not just a story about clothes or social status. This is a story about a moment that changes everything. Are you ready to find out what happens when appearances deceive and secrets are revealed in the most unexpected way? The hallways of Westbrook High buzzed with excitement on a crisp October morning. Whispers about the upcoming fall fashion show filled the air, but for Alejandro Ramirez, each step felt like walking through a minefield of judgmental stares and barely concealed sneers. As he entered Mr. Thompson's AP English class, the sudden hush that fell over the room was deafening. Alejandro's worn sneakers squeaked against the polished floor, drawing unwanted attention. He kept his head down, making his way to the back where an old, slightly wobbly chair awaited him. A fitting metaphor for his place in this world of privilege and designer labels. Oh my God. Emily Blackwell's voice, dripping with disdain, cut through the silence. What is he wearing? It's like he raided a Goodwill dumpster. Laughter erupted around her, and Alejandro felt his cheeks burn. He pulled his threadbare hoodie tighter, wishing he could disappear into the faded fabric. But there was something in Alejandro's eyes, a quiet strength, a flicker of defiance, that didn't match his hunched posture. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat, silencing the class. Today we'll be discussing The Great Gatsby and its critique of the American dream. Alejandro, can you start us off? What do you think Fitzgerald is saying about wealth and status in this passage? Alejandro looked up, meeting the expectant gazes of his classmates. Some sneered, others looked away in secondhand embarrassment. He took a deep breath, his voice steady as he began to speak. Fitzgerald shows us that the American dream isn't just about wealth, he said, his words carrying a weight beyond his years. It's about the cost of that pursuit, what we lose of ourselves along the way. The room fell silent for a moment. Mr. Thompson smiled, nodding in approval, but the moment was shattered by a stage whisper from the front of the room. Looks like someone's an expert on being poor, Tyler, the star quarterback, snickered. More laughter followed, and Alejandro's moment of intellectual triumph crumbled. The rest of the morning crawled by, each class a new opportunity for ridicule. In chemistry, Emily accidentally knocked Alejandro's threadbare backpack to the floor, spilling its meager contents. In history, a crumpled note landed on his desk. Did your mom make that sweater out of old dish rags? By lunchtime, Alejandro's resolve was wearing thin. He sat alone at the far end of the cafeteria, picking at a homemade sandwich. The smell of pizza and burgers from the lunch line made his stomach growl, but he couldn't afford the luxury of buying lunch. Emily and her friends sauntered past, designer purses swinging. "Hey, Alejandro," she called out, her voice syrupy sweet with mock concern. "I heard the drama club is looking for someone to play a homeless person in their next play. You wouldn't even need a costume." The cafeteria erupted in laughter. Alejandro's hands clenched into fists under the table, his sandwich forgotten. He looked up, meeting Emily's cruel gaze, and for a split second, something dangerous flashed in his eyes. It was at that moment that Mr. Daniels, the art teacher and organizer of the school fashion show, approached with a clipboard. "Last call for fashion show sign-ups," he announced cheerfully, oblivious to the tension. Emily's eyes lit up with malicious glee. "Oh, Alejandro," she cooed. "You simply must sign up. I'm sure everyone would love to see your unique style on the runway." The challenge hung in the air. Alejandro could feel every eye in the cafeteria on him waiting for his reaction. His heart pounded in his chest, and for a moment, he struggled to breathe. Then, with a calm that surprised even himself, Alejandro stood up. He walked over to Mr. Daniels, took the pen, and signed his name on the list. The cafeteria fell into a shocked silence. "I'll be there," Alejandro said quietly, handing the clipboard back to a bewildered Mr. Daniels. As he walked out of the cafeteria, whispers erupted behind him. But Alejandro didn't look back. His mind was already racing, planning. A fire ignited within him that no one could see. What no one knew, what no one could possibly guess, was that Alejandro carried a secret far heavier than his worn-out clothes. A secret that made their petty cruelty seem insignificant. A secret that would soon turn their world upside down. As he walked home that afternoon, the autumn leaves crunching beneath his feet, Alejandro allowed himself a small, sad smile. Let them laugh now, he thought. They had no idea what was coming. In the quiet of his small, tidy bedroom, Alejandro pulled out an old sewing machine, a relic from his grandmother. His fingers, calloused from years of work, traced the cool metal. He had a plan, one that would shock everyone at Westbrook High. But as he sat down to begin his work, a wave of dizziness washed over him. Alejandro gripped the edge of his desk, waiting for it to pass. When it did, he took a shaky breath and picked up a piece of fabric. Time was running out, but Alejandro was determined. He would show them all who he really was before it was too late. As the sun set outside his window, casting long shadows across his room, Alejandro began to sew. With each stitch, he poured his heart, his pain, and his hope into the fabric. This wasn't just about a fashion show anymore. It was about leaving a mark, about being seen, truly seen for the first time in his life. And as the needle rose and fell, Alejandro allowed himself to dream of a moment when the laughter would stop, when the sneers would fade, and when, just maybe, they would all understand the truth he'd been hiding all along. Little did Alejandro know, his silent determination was about to set in motion a chain of events that would change not only his life, but the lives of everyone at Westbrook High. The fashion show was coming, and with it, a revelation that would shatter their world forever. Alejandro worked late into the night, his fingers moving deftly despite the occasional tremor that ran through his body. As he sewed, memories flashed through his mind. The proud smile on his mother's face when he aced a test, the quiet nights they spent together watching old movies, the way she tried to hide her exhaustion after working double shifts. He thought of his father gone too soon and the promise he'd made to him. "Mijo," his father had said, his voice weak but filled with love. "Never let anyone make you feel less than you are. You have greatness in you." A tear slipped down Alejandro's cheek, landing softly on the fabric in his hands. He wiped it away quickly, determined not to let his emotions stain his creation. Outside his window, the wealthy neighborhoods of Westbrook glittered with lights. Alejandro could almost picture Emily and her friends in their sprawling homes, laughing about the day's events, never giving a second thought to the pain they caused. But Alejandro wasn't angry. He felt something deeper, more complex, a mixture of pity and determination. They had no idea what real struggle was, what it meant to fight for every breath, every moment. As he finished the last stitch, Alejandro held up his creation. It wasn't flashy or expensive, but it was beautiful in its simplicity and the story it told. He smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his tired face. Just then, his phone buzzed with a text. It was from his best friend Maria, the only person at school who knew his secret. "You okay, Ale? Heard about what happened at lunch. Those jerks don't know what they're talking about." Alejandro typed back, "I'm fine. Actually, I signed up for the fashion show." Maria's response was immediate. "What? Are you crazy? After what they did?" "Trust me," Alejandro replied. "I have a plan." He put down his phone, looking at his reflection in the small mirror above his desk. The boy who looked back at him seemed different somehow, stronger, more resolved. "They think they know me," Alejandro whispered to his reflection. "They have no idea." As he finally crawled into bed, exhaustion overtaking him, Alejandro's last thoughts were of the fashion show. In his mind, he could see himself walking down that runway, head held high, revealing his truth to the world. Little did he know that his decision to sign up for the fashion show had set in motion a series of events that would change everything, not just for him, but for everyone at Westbrook High. As Alejandro drifted off to sleep, the first hints of dawn were beginning to color the sky. A new day was coming, bringing with it challenges, revelations, and the potential for extraordinary change. And in homes across Westbrook, his classmates slept soundly, unaware that their world was about to be turned upside down by the quiet boy they had so carelessly dismissed. The stage was set. The countdown to the fashion show had begun, and Alejandro Ramirez, with his secret burning inside him, was ready to show them all exactly who he really was. As the first rays of sunlight crept through Alejandro's threadbare curtains, he stirred, his body aching from the long night of work. He blinked away the remnants of a dream where he stood tall on the runway, the crowd's jeers turning to stunned silence. The harsh buzz of his alarm clock jolted him fully awake. 6 a.m., time to start another day at Westbrook High. Alejandro moved quietly through the small apartment, careful not to wake his mother, who had stumbled in late from her night shift at the hospital. He paused by her door, listening to her soft breathing, his heart swelling with love and determination. Everything he did was for her, to make her proud, to give her hope. As he prepared a simple breakfast of toast and instant coffee, Alejandro's mind raced with plans for the fashion show. He knew the odds were stacked against him, but a small, defiant part of him relished the challenge. Let them underestimate him. It would make the revelation all the sweeter. The walk to school was crisp, fall leaves crunching under his worn sneakers. Alejandro clutched his backpack close, protecting the precious fabric hidden inside. As he approached the imposing brick facade of Westbrook High, he took a deep breath, steeling himself for another day of sideways glances and whispered insults. But something was different today. As he walked through the main entrance, he noticed small clusters of students huddled together, their voices hushed but excited. When they saw Alejandro, conversations stopped abruptly, replaced by curious stares. Confused, Alejandro made his way to his locker. That's when he saw it, a bright flyer plastered on the wall. Westbrook High Fashion Show. Expect the unexpected. See your classmates like never before. And there, listed among the participants, was his name. Alejandro Ramirez. His heart raced. He hadn't expected the news to spread so quickly. As he fumbled with his locker combination, he felt a presence behind him. Well, 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 Emily's voice dripped with sarcasm. If it isn't our very own fashion icon. Alejandro turned slowly, facing his tormentor. Emily stood flanked by her usual group of followers, all wearing matching smirks. I hope you're ready for your big moment, Alejandro, Emily continued, her eyes glinting with malice. Everyone's dying to see what kind of masterpiece you'll come up with. The group laughed, but Alejandro noticed something he hadn't before, a flicker of uncertainty in Emily's eyes. Was she worried? Before Alejandro could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. Leave him alone, Emily. Maria, Alejandro's best friend, stepped between them, her dark eyes flashing with anger. Emily's smirk faltered for a moment before she recovered. Oh, look, the charity case has a defender, how sweet. You know what's really sweet, Emily? Maria shot back. The look on your face when Alejandro blows everyone away at that show. The hallway fell silent, all eyes darting between Emily and Maria. For a moment it seemed like Emily might lash out, but instead she let out a forced laugh. Whatever, come on girls, we have actual fashion to discuss. As Emily and her group sauntered away, Maria turned to Alejandro, concern etched on her face. Are you sure about this, Ale? You don't have to prove anything to these people. Alejandro managed a small smile. I'm not doing it for them, Maria, I'm doing it for me. As they walked to class together, Alejandro felt a mix of emotions swirling inside him. Fear, determination, and a growing sense that something big was about to happen. The fashion show was no longer just an event. It had become a symbol of everything he had endured and everything he hoped to become. Little did anyone know the true revelation was still to come. Alejandro's secret, the one that made their petty cruelty seem insignificant, was about to change everything. And as he sat down in his first class of the day, Alejandro silently vowed to make every moment count. The countdown to the fashion show had begun, and with it the countdown to a truth that would shake Westbrook High to its very foundation. As the day progressed, whispers about Alejandro's participation in the fashion show spread like wildfire through the halls of Westbrook High. Some students snickered behind their hands, already crafting cruel jokes about what he might wear. Others, intrigued by his unexpected boldness, wondered if there was more to the quiet Latino boy than met the eye. During lunch, Alejandro sat alone as usual, but he could feel the weight of curious glances from all corners of the cafeteria. He picked at his homemade sandwich, his appetite diminished by a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Suddenly, a tray clattered onto the table across from him. "Mind if I join you?" It was Jason, captain of the debate team and one of the few students who had never participated in Emily's taunting. Alejandro nodded, surprised. Jason sat down, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "So the fashion show, huh?" Jason said, his voice low. "That's pretty brave of you." Alejandro met Jason's gaze, searching for any hint of mockery. Finding none, he allowed himself a small smile. "Someone has to shake things up around here." Jason leaned in, lowering his voice further. "Listen, I know we're not really friends, but are you okay? I mean, with everything that's been happening." For a moment, Alejandro considered brushing off the question, but something in Jason's sincere expression made him pause. "I'm managing," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "But thanks for asking. It means more than you know." As Jason opened his mouth to respond, a commotion near the cafeteria entrance caught their attention. Emily and her group had just walked in, and she was making a beeline for Alejandro's table, her face twisted in a sneer. "Well, isn't this cozy?" Emily said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Looks like our little fashionista is recruiting supporters. What's the matter, Jason? Slumming it today?" Jason's face flushed red, but before he could respond, Alejandro stood up slowly, his eyes locked on Emily's. "You know, Emily," he said, his voice quiet but steady, "I used to wonder why you felt the need to tear others down, but I think I understand now. It's not about me at all, is it? It's about you, your insecurities, your fears." The cafeteria fell silent, all eyes on the confrontation. Emily's smirk faltered, replaced by a flash of something that looked almost like fear. "You don't know anything about me," Emily hissed, but her voice lacked its usual venom. "Maybe not," Alejandro replied, "but I know more than you think, and at the fashion show, you'll all see exactly who I am." With that, Alejandro gathered his things and walked out of the cafeteria, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. As he pushed through the doors, he could hear the buzz of conversation exploding behind him. In the hallway, Alejandro leaned against a row of lockers, his heart pounding. He hadn't planned on confronting Emily like that, but something had snapped inside him. For the first time, he had glimpsed the person he could be: strong, confident, unafraid. As he caught his breath, his phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a text from his mother. "Doctor called. They want to move up your appointment. Can you come to the hospital after school?" Alejandro's momentary high evaporated, replaced by a cold dread. He typed back a quick, "Yes," his hand shaking slightly. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. As students poured into the hallway, Alejandro straightened up, squaring his shoulders. He had faced down Emily and her cruelty. He could face whatever news the doctor had. As he walked to his next class, Alejandro's mind raced. The fashion show, the doctor's appointment, his secret. Everything was coming to a head, and soon nothing would be the same. Little did the students of Westbrook High know, the real drama was just beginning. And Alejandro Ramirez, the boy they had dismissed and mocked, was about to change their world forever. As the final bell rang, signaling the end of another school day, Alejandro hurried out of Westbrook High. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot as he began his walk to the hospital, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The confrontation with Emily in the cafeteria had left him feeling both exhilarated and exhausted. For once, he had stood up for himself. But the cost of that momentary triumph weighed heavily on him. He knew the backlash would come, swift and merciless. But right now, he had bigger concerns. The hospital loomed ahead, its imposing structure a stark reminder of the battles he'd been fighting in secret. Alejandro took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever news awaited him inside. As he entered the familiar antiseptic-scented hallways, a nurse recognized him with a sad smile. "Alejandro, honey, your mom's already here. Dr. Patel is waiting for you both in his office." Alejandro nodded, his throat too tight to speak. He made his way to the oncology ward, each step feeling heavier than the last. Outside Dr. Patel's office, he found his mother, her face etched with worry lines that seemed to have deepened overnight. "Mijo," she whispered, pulling him into a fierce hug. "Whatever happens, we face it together, okay?" Alejandro nodded against her shoulder, drawing strength from her embrace. Then, hand in hand, they entered the office. Dr. Patel, a kind-faced man with salt and pepper hair, greeted them with a somber expression. "Alejandro, Mrs. Ramirez, thank you for coming on such short notice. Please have a seat." As they settled into the chairs across from his desk, Dr. Patel cleared his throat. "I'm afraid I have some difficult news. Alejandro's latest test results show that the cancer has progressed more rapidly than we anticipated. The treatment, it's not working as we'd hoped." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Alejandro felt his mother's hand tighten around his, heard her sharp intake of breath. "What does this mean?" Alejandro asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Patel's eyes were filled with compassion as he looked at Alejandro. "It means we need to consider more aggressive treatment options. But I want to be honest with you both. Our window of opportunity is narrowing." Alejandro's mind reeled. He thought of the fashion show, of his plans to reveal his truth to the world. Would he even have the chance now? How long? His mother's voice cracked as she asked the question they both dreaded. Dr. Patel sighed. "Without more aggressive treatment, we're looking at a few months. With it, we might be able to buy more time, but the side effects will be significant." The room fell silent, the weight of the news settling over them like a heavy blanket. Alejandro closed his eyes, feeling tears threatening to spill. But then, unbidden, an image flashed in his mind. Himself on the runway, head held high, defying expectations. He opened his eyes, a new resolve settling over him. What if I want to focus on quality of life instead of quantity?" he asked, his voice stronger than he felt. Dr. Patel nodded slowly. "That's certainly an option, Alejandro. But it's a big decision, one that you and your mother should discuss carefully." As they left the hospital, the sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Alejandro and his mother walked in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, as they neared their apartment, his mother spoke. "Mijo, whatever you decide, I support you. But please don't give up. You're so strong, so brave." Alejandro stopped, turning to face her. "Mama, I'm not giving up. I'm choosing to live, really live, for whatever time I have left. And it starts with the fashion show." His mother's eyes widened. "The fashion show? Alejandro, with everything that's happening?" "It's more important than ever," he interrupted gently. "I want to show everyone who I really am before—" He couldn't finish the sentence. As understanding dawned in his mother's eyes, she pulled him close. "Oh, my brave boy," she whispered. "You'll show them all." That night, as Alejandro worked on his outfit for the show, his hands moved with a new urgency. The ticking clock that had always been in the background of his life now seemed deafening. But with each stitch, each careful detail, he poured his heart, his dreams, and his defiance into the fabric. The fashion show was no longer just about standing up to bullies or proving his worth. It had become his statement to the world, his legacy, and Alejandro was determined to make it count. As he finally fell into an exhausted sleep, the nearly finished outfit draped over his chair, Alejandro's last thought was of the runway. In his dreams, he walked towards a bright light, head held high, ready to show the world the truth of who he was, all of who he was. Little did the students of Westbrook High know, the fashion show would be more than just a school event. It would be the day that changed everything, the day Alejandro Ramirez would leave a mark on their lives that none of them would ever forget. The next morning, Alejandro woke with a renewed sense of purpose. As he got ready for school, he caught his reflection in the mirror. Pale, tired, but with a fire in his eyes that hadn't been there before. He touched the soft fabric of his nearly completed outfit, a small smile playing on his lips. Today was the day before the fashion show, and he had work to do. At school, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Posters for the fashion show adorned every wall, and excited chatter filled the hallways. As Alejandro walked to his locker, he noticed the stares and whispers following him. But today they didn't bother him. Let them wonder, he thought. They'll see soon enough. As he approached his locker, he saw Maria waiting for him, her face a mix of excitement and concern. "Ale," she said, pulling him into a quick hug. "How are you feeling? Ready for tomorrow?" Alejandro nodded, his voice low but steady. "More ready than I've ever been for anything in my life." Maria studied his face, sensing something different about her friend. "What happened at the doctor's yesterday? Is everything okay?" For a moment, Alejandro considered telling her everything, the progression of his cancer, the limited time he had left. But he held back. Not yet. Tomorrow, everyone would know the truth. "It's complicated," he said finally, "but I promise after the show I'll explain everything." Maria looked like she wanted to press further, but at that moment, Emily and her group rounded the corner. The hallway fell silent as Emily approached, her eyes locked on Alejandro. "Well, if it isn't our little fashionista," Emily sneered, but there was an edge of uncertainty in her voice. "Ready to embarrass yourself tomorrow?" Alejandro met her gaze steadily. "You know, Emily, I used to care what you thought of me. But now, I realize your opinion doesn't matter at all." Emily's eyes widened in shock, and for a moment she seemed at a loss for words. Then, recovering her composure, she let out a forced laugh. "We'll see about that tomorrow, won't we?" With a flip of her hair, she stalked off, her group trailing behind her. As the day progressed, Alejandro found himself the center of attention in a way he'd never experienced before. Students who had never spoken to him were suddenly curious, asking about his outfit for the show. Even some teachers seemed intrigued by his unexpected participation. During lunch, Alejandro sat with Maria, and to his surprise, Jason joined them again. As they talked, Alejandro felt a warmth spreading through him. For the first time, he wasn't the outcast, the kid in shabby clothes to be pitied or mocked. He was just Alejandro, a person with thoughts, feelings, and value. After school, as Alejandro walked home, his phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Daniels, the fashion show organizer. "Alejandro, just checking in. Are you still participating tomorrow? If you need any help or want to back out, it's not too late." Alejandro typed back quickly, "I'll be there, and trust me, it's going to be unforgettable." That evening, as Alejandro put the finishing touches on his outfit, his mother watched from the doorway, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Mijo," she said softly, "are you sure about this? With everything that's happening?" Alejandro turned to her, his face set with determination. "Mama, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Tomorrow I get to show the world who I really am. All of who I am." His mother crossed the room and pulled him into a tight embrace. "My brave, beautiful boy," she whispered, "you're going to change lives tomorrow." As Alejandro finally crawled into bed, his completed outfit hanging proudly on his closet door, he felt a strange mix of emotions. Excitement, fear, sadness, and above all, a sense of rightness. Tomorrow would change everything, not just for him, but for everyone at Westbrook High. In homes across town, his classmates were also preparing for the show, none of them aware of the profound impact Alejandro's revelation would have on their lives. Emily tossed and turned, unable to shake a nagging feeling of unease. Maria lay awake, worried about her friend and the secret she sensed he was keeping. And in countless other bedrooms, students drifted off to sleep, their dreams filled with visions of runway lights and the unexpected. As the night deepened, Westbrook High stood silent, waiting for the dawn that would bring with it a day like no other. And at the heart of it all was Alejandro Ramirez, the boy they had overlooked for so long, about to step into the spotlight and change their world forever. The morning of the fashion show dawned bright and clear, a perfect autumn day that seemed to mirror the anticipation buzzing through Westbrook High. As students arrived, The air was electric with excitement and nervous energy. Alejandro woke early, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. He carefully packed his outfit into a garment bag, his hands trembling slightly. As he emerged from his room, he found his mother waiting, her eyes red-rimmed but filled with pride. "Mijo," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "No matter what happens today, remember how proud I am of you. You are so much stronger than you know." Alejandro hugged her tightly, drawing strength from her embrace. "Thank you, Mama," he whispered, "for everything." The walk to school felt different today. Alejandro noticed details he'd never paid attention to before. The way the sunlight filtered through the changing leaves, the laughter of children at a nearby playground, the smell of fresh bread from the corner bakery. Every sensation seemed heightened, more vivid than ever before. As he approached Westbrook High, he saw students gathered in excited clusters, many already dressed in their fashion show outfits. Eyes turned to him as he walked up the steps, curiosity and speculation evident in their gazes. Inside the hallways were a flurry of activity. Mr. Daniels, looking frazzled but excited, was directing students and setting up last-minute details. He spotted Alejandro and hurried over. "Alejandro, there you are you ready? Do you need anything?" The teacher's eyes were kind, tinged with a hint of worry. Alejandro managed a small smile. "I'm ready, Mr. Daniels, more than ready." As he made his way to the changing area, Alejandro passed Emily and her group. They fell silent as he approached, their usual mockery replaced by uncertain glances. Emily opened her mouth as if to say something, then closed it again, looking away. In the changing room, Alejandro carefully unpacked his outfit. As he slipped it on, he caught his reflection in the mirror. The person staring back at him wasn't the shy, bullied boy he'd been for so long. This was someone new, someone strong, defiant, and unafraid. A knock at the door startled him. "Ale, can I come in?" It was Maria's voice. "Come in," Alejandro called softly. Maria entered, her eyes widening as she took in his appearance. "Oh, Ale," she breathed. "You look incredible." Alejandro smiled, but there was a sadness in his eyes that Maria couldn't miss. "Maria," he said, taking her hand, "there's something I need to tell you. After the show, I promise I'll explain everything." Maria squeezed his hand, her eyes filling with tears she couldn't quite explain. "Whatever it is, I'm here for you. Always." The backstage area was chaos as students made last-minute adjustments and nervously peeked out at the gathering audience. Alejandro stood quietly in a corner, his heart racing but his resolve firm. Mr. Daniels appeared, clipboard in hand. "All right, everyone, places, remember you're all stars today, go out there and shine." As the music started and the first students took to the runway, Alejandro closed his eyes, taking deep breaths. He thought of all the moments that had led him here, the taunts, the loneliness, the silent battles he'd fought. But he also thought of the kindness he'd experienced, the love of his mother, the friendship of Maria. Finally, it was his turn. As he stepped onto the runway, the bright lights momentarily blinding him, Alejandro felt a strange calm settle over him. This was his moment, his chance to show the world who he truly was. The audience fell silent as he walked, his simple yet elegant outfit a stark contrast to the flashy designs that had come before. But it wasn't just the clothes that caught their attention. There was something in Alejandro's walk, in the set of his shoulders, in the quiet dignity of his expression that held them spellbound. As he reached the end of the runway, Alejandro paused. This was it, the moment of truth. He took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice clear and strong. "My name is Alejandro Ramirez," he began, "and there's something I need to tell you all." The audience leaned forward, hanging on his every word. In that moment, as Alejandro prepared to reveal his truth, the world seemed to hold its breath. What came next would change everything, not just for Alejandro, but for every person in that auditorium. And as he spoke, the students of Westbrook High began to realize that they were witnessing something extraordinary. A moment of raw honesty and courage that would stay with them for the rest of their lives. Alejandro's voice, steady and clear, filled the auditorium. "For years I've walked these halls invisible to most of you. You saw my worn clothes, my quiet demeanor, and you made assumptions. But there's so much more to me, to all of us, than what you see on the surface." He paused, his eyes scanning the crowd. He saw Emily, her usual smirk replaced by a look of uncertainty. He saw Maria, tears streaming down her face. And there, in the back, he saw his mother, her hand pressed to her heart. "What you don't know," Alejandro continued, his voice wavering slightly, "is that for the past 2 years I've been fighting cancer, and yesterday I found out that it's a fight I'm not going to win." A collective gasp rippled through the audience. The silence that followed was deafening. "But I'm not here for your pity," Alejandro said, his voice growing stronger. "I'm here because I want you to understand something important. Life is short, shorter for some of us than others, and we waste so much of it judging each other, tearing each other down, when we could be lifting each other up." He gestured to his outfit, a simple but elegantly crafted ensemble that spoke of both his talent and his heritage. "This outfit isn't just about fashion, it's about who I am. All of who I am. It's about my culture, my struggles, my dreams. It's about the mother who worked 3 jobs to support me, the grandmother who taught me to sew, the friends who stood by me even when it wasn't easy." Alejandro's eyes found Emily in the crowd. "And it's about forgiveness, because holding on to anger and hurt only hurts ourselves in the end." Emily's face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks as the weight of her actions hit her full force. "I don't have much time left," Alejandro continued, his voice now thick with emotion. "But I have enough time to say this. Be kind to each other. Look beyond the surface. You never know what battles someone is fighting." He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I may not have long to live, but in this moment right now I feel more alive than I ever have. Because for the first time I'm truly being seen. And isn't that what we all want in the end? To be seen, to be understood, to matter?" The auditorium was silent, save for the sound of muffled sobs. Students who had never given Alejandro a second glance were now riveted, many wiping away tears. "So here I am," Alejandro said, spreading his arms wide. "This is me, all of me, and I hope that by sharing my truth I've helped you see a little bit of your own." With that, Alejandro turned and began to walk back down the runway. But before he could take more than a few steps, something unexpected happened. Emily stood up, her face streaked with mascara. "Wait!" she called out, her voice breaking. She rushed to the stage, climbing up onto the runway. For a moment she stood there, facing Alejandro, her body shaking with sobs. Then, to everyone's shock, she threw her arms around him. "I'm sorry," she wept into his shoulder. "I'm so sorry." Alejandro, stunned at first, slowly returned the embrace. And as they stood there, the bully and the bullied, something remarkable happened. Other students began to stand, to move towards the stage. Maria was the first to join them, wrapping her arms around both Alejandro and Emily. Then Jason, then others. Soon, the runway was filled with students, all embracing, many crying, barriers of cliques and social status crumbling in the face of Alejandro's raw honesty and courage. In that moment, Westbrook High was transformed. The fashion show had become something much more. A catalyst for change, a moment of collective empathy and understanding. As Alejandro stood there, surrounded by his classmates, he felt a profound sense of peace. He had done what he set out to do. He had been seen, truly seen, and in doing so, he had helped others see themselves and each other more clearly. The fashion show would go down in Westbrook High history, not for the clothes worn or the styles displayed, but for the moment when a young man's courage and honesty broke down walls and opened hearts. And though Alejandro's time was limited, his impact would be felt for years to come, a testament to the power of one person's truth to change the world around them.
Thank you for listening until the end. Share your opinion about the story in the comments and let us know which character you liked the most. If this story touched you and you want to hear more, click on the next story appearing on your screen. Leave a like and subscribe to our channel so we can build a great community of people who share emotional stories together. Until the next story.